Once upon a time, there was a young lady named Charity. She was the most beautiful lady in the land, with a radiant smile that could light up the darkest room. Her sparkling eyes shone like diamonds, and her flawless skin glowed like honey. Her natural hair was soft and curly, and her voluptuous curves made her look like a queen. Charity was confident in all she did. She walked with her head held high, and her smile could charm anyone. But despite her beauty, Charity had a secret. She didn't want to get married. Why not? Everyone would ask. You're so beautiful, you'll make a perfect bride. But Charity would just shake her head. I don't want to get married, she'd say. One day, a wise old woman asked Charity, why don't you want to get married, my dear? Charity looked down, her eyes welling up with tears. I've seen what marriage does to women, she said. It takes away their freedom, their happiness, and their dreams. The old woman was shocked. What do you mean? She asked. Charity took a deep breath. My mother was beautiful, just like me. But when she got married, her husband controlled her every move. He wouldn't let her walk, or see her friends, or even leave the house without his permission. The old woman's eyes widened in horror. That's terrible, she exclaimed. Charity nodded. And it's not just my mother. I've seen it happen to so many women. They get married, and suddenly they're trapped. They lose themselves, their happiness, and their dreams. The old woman was silent for a moment. Then she asked, but what about love, Charity? Don't you want to find someone to love you for who you are? Charity's eyes flashed with anger. Love is just a word, she said. It's an excuse for men to control women. I don't want to be controlled. I want to be free. As the years went by, Charity's decision not to get married became a topic of discussion among the townspeople. Some admired her independence, while others pitied her. One day, a young girl named Sophia approached Charity. Why don't you want to get married? Sophia asked. Charity smiled. I want to be free, she said. I want to make my own choices and live my own life. Sophia looked confused. But don't you want someone to love you? She asked. Charity's expression turned sad. I've seen what love can do to people, she said. It can trap them and take away their freedom. I don't want that. Sophia nodded, but she didn't fully understand. She went home and asked her mother, why doesn't Charity want to get married? Her mother sighed. Charity has been hurt before, she said. She's afraid of losing herself in marriage. Sophia's eyes widened in surprise. But marriage is supposed to be beautiful, she said. Her mother smiled. Marriage can be beautiful, but it's not for everyone. Charity has made her choice, and we must respect it. As Sophia grew older, she began to understand Charity's decision. She saw how Charity was free to make her own choices and live her own life. But she also saw the loneliness in Charity's eyes. One day, Sophia approached Charity again. Charity, I understand why you don't want to get married, she said. But don't you ever get lonely? Charity's expression turned sad. Sometimes, she said. But I'd rather be lonely than trapped. Sophia nodded. I understand, she said. But I want you to know that marriage isn't always like that. My parents are happy, and they respect each other's freedom. Charity smiled. I'm glad to hear that, she said. Maybe one day, I'll find someone who loves me for who I am. But that day never came. Charity grew old alone, surrounded by her books and her memories. As she lay on her deathbed, Sophia visited her. Charity, I want you to know that I admire your strength, Sophia said. But I also want you to know that I've learned from your mistakes. Charity's eyes widened in surprise. What do you mean? She asked. Sophia smiled. I mean that marriage isn't always bad, she said. Sometimes, it's beautiful. And I want you to know that I've found someone who loves me for who I am. Charity's expression turned sad. I'm glad for you, she said. But I wish I had made different choices. Sophia took Charity's hand. Don't regret your choices, she said. You've taught me to be strong and independent. But you've also taught me that marriage can be beautiful if we choose the right person. Charity smiled weakly. Thank you, she said. I'm glad I could teach you something. As Charity took her last breath, Sophia knew that she had learned a valuable lesson. She had learned that marriage wasn't always bad, but it required choosing the right person and respecting each other's freedom. And so, Sophia lived her life with that lesson in mind. She found someone who loved her for who she was, and she respected his freedom. Together, they built a happy life, one that was filled with love, respect, and freedom. The end.